This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
The law of attraction states that everything is energy and that like attracts like. True spirituality states that the only true reality is that of oneness, unity, and unconditional love and forgiveness. Together, these two are attached at the hip and perform a beautiful symbiotic dance together. Hi, I'm Carl Gruber, author of the brand new book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship. This is a book that will show you how to build a rock-solid personal foundation based on unchanging, eternal, universal truth that shows you how to become a consistent co-creator with the universe to create the life you love to live and live to love. Get your copy today of my new book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship, and learn how to manifest the life you truly desire to be living. Now available as an ebook or paperback on Amazon. Hey, this is the podcast World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment, and I'm so glad that you've chosen to join us today. We have yet another fantastic, enlightening guest with us for this show as we continue to explore the non-dualistic spiritual teachings of A Course in Miracles and all things spiritual, enlightening, and metaphysical. Now, before we check in with today's guest, I would be so grateful if you checked out my brand new book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship, a book that will help you to build a rock-solid personal foundation for your life in order to become a consistent co-creator with the universe to live the life you love and love the life you live. Now available as an ebook or paperback on Amazon. Just click the link below to get your copy today. Well, let's check in with our guests for today. Based in the United Kingdom, our featured guest is kironJ Gardner. Now, she has explored healing and forgiveness for over 30 years and is deeply motivated by a passion for interconnection and following guidance. Her work has included relationship counseling, facilitation of self-development groups, spiritual event management, movement and sound work, and hands-on healing. kironJ currently leads A Course in Miracles workshops and groups, in-depth study and experience series, offers one-to-one spiritual support, and speaks at A.C.I.M gatherings. And her approach is highly experiential with a joyful appreciation of how metaphysics supports the practice of forgiveness and how forgiveness supports the understanding of the metaphysics. And that is a beautiful virtuous cycle or circle of awakening. You can find kironJ on many online workshops, meditations, and podcasts. And with that, kironJ, I am so honored and grateful to have you on the show. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you. It's very, very lovely to be here. I'm, yes, all full of holy delight that we can come together and share for holy purpose.
Yeah, beautiful start to this show. That's great. Yeah, one thing that I do before we dive into the beautiful teachings and messages of the non-dualistic spirituality of A Course in Miracles, I always like my audience to find out a little bit more about the guests. Would you be so kind as to relate to us what your life was like in your earlier years? Were you always a spiritual, metaphysical person? Did it take a long time to develop? And how did the A.C.I.M even come into your life?
Okay. the brief version. I had quite a troubled childhood. I was brought up a Catholic, and there were many things that were painful in my experience. So Jesus was a figure full of blood on the cross. I had two great aunts who were nuns. That was very, very scary. And I muddled my way through, very reserved, very shy, very introverted, and in a lot of pain, psychological, spiritual pain. And then I did the normal things of go to university, get married, have a child. And then when my son was just over 3, I left my husband. And then 6 months later, my mum died. And this was a stage of enormous, explosive growth. I was just asking, what's going on here? Just what is this all about? So I went full pelt into exploring. And that's when I became a relationship counsellor. At the same time, I was studying to be or training to be a spiritual healer. So huge amounts of new information, new ideas, and new connection. Because I'd left my Catholic roots behind. I didn't have any conscious spiritual life in my 20s. But by my early 30s, I was beginning to look again. And the most important thing that happened in that time was coming across a phrase from the Bible again. I don't remember, I wasn't reading the Bible, I wasn't involved in anything Christian, but somehow this phrase arrived in my mind, and it was Jesus saying, "Whatsoever I have done, you will do, and more so." And that completely stopped me in my tracks. In that moment, I knew there was a Jesus. I knew what he was saying was true, and I had no idea about how that could be true. I was a single mom. I'd got very little money. My health was beginning to decline, and it didn't look likely at all, but something in me knew it was true. So in my mind, I laid down a gauntlet and I said, okay, Jesus, if you are saying this is true, it has to be true. So you show me. Show me. And it came from such a deep part of my being. Show me. And my entire life since then has been Jesus showing me.
Oh, wow.
And it's taken me through some interesting places, because I went through a period of severe illness for 6 years, right away from the physical world, when there was great opportunity to join minds. There was nothing else going on physically. I was right away from everything. And so it was a case of sinking or swimming, really. And fortunately, I seemed to have the determination and the willingness, or this was before I came across the course, so it was not related directly to the course. Of course, that was coming. But something in me, I had New Age versions of God, I had some ideas of spirituality, and I just kept going in that direction in my mind. And it brought me through. Mm-hmm. And it was forgiveness indeed. I mean, it was all those 6 years of working in my mind, connecting. And then right towards the end, I had a deep forgiveness experience in relationship to my father, because it had been a very conflicted, difficult relationship. And suddenly I knew I loved him. It didn't matter. I still thought he'd done something at that stage, but it was good enough forgiveness. It was, I don't care what you've done, I love you. And that was the turning point that started to get me up and around. And it was a long journey of changing my thoughts, to go from somebody who'd been bedridden for 6 years, couldn't speak for 5 or see for 5 of those years, to come back to what we would call a normal life. And about 5 years into this recovery process and traveling around the world and doing all sorts of things, having adventures after lying still for 6 years, I came across A Course in Miracles.
Okay.
And I'd actually seen it 25 years ago. I bought it in a book club. I thought, oh, that book looks interesting. And I opened it, had no idea what it was talking about, and passed it on within the week to somebody else. So that was a very fleeting look at the course. But when it came back to me, or I found it again, in very peculiar, quirky circumstances, really way out, eclectic spiritual meeting in a very mainstream pub in a little village in the south of England. I mean, you couldn't make it up. And somebody there was talking, and I thought, I like something about you. What's going on with you? And he was a Course in Miracles teacher. And I thought, okay, that's that book I gave away 25 years ago. Perhaps I'll have another look. And within a month, I had found somewhere to live because I was homeless when I was in this situation. And I found somewhere to live, and I found a study group, and somebody offered me a book because money was very, very tight at that time. In fact, I was offered 2 books, 2 versions in my first study group evening. So I took the blue book that we all know, and I started studying the lessons within a few days. And I opened it up. I read the introduction. I read lesson 1, and the presence of Jesus was so overwhelming and so clear. I just knew this is for me. I understand it, although I was reading lesson 1. I understood it. I was accessing the part of my mind that completely understands it, and I haven't looked back. I have loved it from that moment.
Wow, what an experience in your earlier years. This is going to make a great movie. Wow. But, I think everybody's life is a movie and a book. But what I like about you, when you were through that hard time, especially when you had a 3-year-old child and you left your husband, and a lot of people would have gone the opposite direction. They would have gone down the dark tunnel of depression, but yet you grabbed onto it and rose into the light. And I think it's important for many people too, who, especially if they're new to the modern spiritual guide, A Course in Miracles, when you speak about Jesus, it really has nothing to do with religion. It's everything to do with true spirituality. Many people just, they hear Jesus and, oh my God, it's another evangelist, but it's got nothing to do with that. Yeah.
No, Jesus came to me when I was a child as this bloody figure on the cross, and all very scary. But A Course in Miracles, Jesus is the mind that thought he was the person, Jesus, and a transcended mind, a mind that has remembered the truth of who he is. And he says in the Course, he's our brother and he is equal to us. That laying down the gauntlet, and you show me, I absolutely understand now what he was talking about, although I've yet to walk on water and, do the miracles that Jesus did in the Bible. Of course, I know what he's talking about because we have equal minds. Mm-hmm. He couldn't possibly do anything that we couldn't do. But he's not really talking about bodily things. He's talking about the power of the mind to remember its true nature, to remember its true identity. And we have equal power to choose to remember, just as Jesus did.
And I think that line that you pointed out from that Jesus said in the Bible, there's nothing that I can do that you can't do, or even greater. When I first contemplated that, it really helped me realize that I am a spiritual being having a human experience, and that I really am, the Son of God. And there is nothing that he can do that I can't. And it's a freeing feeling when you realize that, when you contemplate it.
Certainly is. It really, really is. And then the challenges can come with the seeming contrast between our day-to-day lives and our problems and our challenges, and I am a child of God. I am perfect, healed, whole. Not even healed. I never was unhealed. I'm whole. I am an extension of God's being. And then the work begins to see that everything that isn't, I am perfect, I am an extension of God's being, I am spirit, is an hallucination.
Mm.
That is a deep, radical journey without distance, as the Course says, for the mind.
Yeah, an illusion. And, you mentioned earlier, too, when you first started reading A Course in Miracles, it's like, well, I remember having Gary Renard on my show here, and we were both talking about it. And he said the first time he opened it up, he read it, and he goes, what the hell is this? That's actually what he said. It's like reading a foreign language at first, but you have to stay with it. And then the truth and the light and the love starts seeping slowly into your consciousness. Yeah.
I love there's a little bit in the Course that speaks about this language thing, because absolutely it's very common to look at it and think, what is this about? Speak English, will you? What are all these Christian terms? It's very confusing, but there is reason and wisdom and brilliance and genius and healing power in exactly the way the Course is written, I would say, and I can say more about that. But what I would like to come to is that in the Course, it says, this is your language, and it's like you are a baby at the moment. If you think of a baby, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months old, it can't understand its parents, no idea what the words are. However, it will understand the love, it will understand the care, and in time, it will come to understand the words slowly, slowly at first. I've got a 2-year-old grandson. So I'm in the middle of looking at all this, how the words, how the language come on board, and they do. And this can be our experience with A Course in Miracles. If we ask in our mind to feel the love that this represents, that connection with the love will support us to open to more and more understanding at what we are experiencing at the human level here. And that's such a powerful and miraculous process. And it will be for everyone who chooses to go that route.
Boy, the world can really use that right now, I would say. But so just an aside, a 2-year-old grandson, I think I read that he's your form of daily exercise, trying to keep up with him.
Well, I've got a nana slot 2 afternoons a week. So yes, and I often see him more than that. But it's an amazing experience to go through seeing a baby with my Course understanding. I mean, my son and son-in-law aren't at all interested in A Course in Miracles or this way of looking. So it's about respecting their mind decision to be where they are. And so I'm Nana and I'm with my grandson, and seeing how it all develops and how rooted and entrenched the separation thought system is. How we make it, moment by moment, day by day, with our babies, with our children. We are teaching them differences. We are teaching them physicality. We are teaching them you're special. And of course, given how entrenched this is in our minds, we have to go through this process. It's no good talking to my grandson at 2 years old and saying, listen to A Course in Miracles. Absolutely ridiculous. I go and support at the human level and be a loving Nana. And he picks it up and he's very, very connected and loves his Nana. And that's the minds that are really joining. So at the Nana level, you do Nana things. But in the mind, my practice and my gift to the minds that are dreaming they're my family is to be a demonstration of remembering the truth, not through the words that come out, but through the quality of my attention and my decision, which their minds will be detecting, and they will follow that when they're ready.
Well, it's interesting. I have read a number of times in psychological studies that all of our paradigms for our entire life are entrained in us by the time we're 7 years old. So, as you said, we teach our toddlers and our children to be, about physicality, being separate from everybody else, and then we spend the rest of our life trying to overcome that and remember the truth of our unity and oneness.
Well, of course, yes. At the physical level, this is what happens, indeed. And we all go through this process. We're all children. We've all grown up in some sort of fashion. However, if we come to the Course teaching, it sees that very differently. It sees that the mind, outside of time and space, no age at all, is projecting an image that we know as a newborn baby, a 3-month-old baby, a 6-month-old baby, a 2-year-old child. The mind is ageless, but it's choosing to identify with a youngster who can be influenced by culture, influenced by parents, have awful things happen to it. But this is all a mind decision to have that experience, including all the abuse, all the poverty, all the horrors that children, if we stay with children for a moment, can experience. There are no victims. Now, this can sound very tough if we're new to the Course, even if we've been with the Course for a while. You say, what do you mean? That poor child, what power did it have? It had these parents, it had this situation. At the worldly level, yes, of course. And that's the illusion, that's what's going on. What's really happening, and even that's not really happening, but if we come back towards the truth, we see a mind choosing to project the trauma of separation onto a worldly experience because it doesn't want to know that it's really in the mind because it's chosen to be separate from God. So it is a mind decision at every moment, whatever it looks like, from the worldly point of view.
Well, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. Well, actually, you said there are no victims, and yet here we are in a world where most of the people in the world have a victim mentality. It's your fault. It's not my fault. I'm the victim of what you did.
Yes, I would phrase it slightly differently. We have a belief we're in a world, but there is no world. The Course says, what if you recognized that the world is an hallucination? What if you realized that those that seem to walk about in it are wholly unreal? WHO, completely unreal. And so when we have a human experience of looking at the news and reading newspapers and talking to friends and watching television, and we look at all the horror out there, and we say, look at what's going on in the world. The wars, the crises, the climate situations. Look, it's awful. And A Course in Miracles is saying, this is a whole set of pictures in your mind that are the ego thought system. And yes, it is awful. It is also unreal. So I would say we're not in a world, we're choosing to have an experience of being a person in a world. But none of that is real. It's a mind decision to put the trauma somewhere else. And we've done a very good job at making a world full of trauma.
Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a beautiful teacher of A Course in Miracles here, and she's nailing it perfectly. And thank you for that beautiful description. One thing that I would like to ask you, you describe your work as being highly experiential with a joyful appreciation of how metaphysics supports the practice of forgiveness. How so?
Yes. Oh, thank you. Happy to come to this. how it's always worked through me, through this mind, when sharing the course, supporting students with the course. Of course, the Holy Spirit is the teacher, not kironJ. Because this mind has had such a deep experience of connection before, and of course, really hot-housed in those 6 years of not being in the world, I know the value of this connection for ourselves. And so what I am doing at every moment when I'm with students, one-to-one, in groups, is supporting them to open to that connection for themselves. So I will be leading processes, inviting them to close their eyes and open their minds, call upon a spirit connection, and go through some process of opening and looking differently at their experience. Silence is coming up big time in my work. I've got the prompt to offer receiving from silence workshops. There's been 2. There's another one coming up on the 12th of November. 20-minute times of silent joining with each other, with Jesus, with Holy Spirit, with any symbol that we would like to choose for a love beyond the world, and then sharing about it, and then a short break, and then continuing. 4 sets of that. And students are finding it incredibly powerful, because in the silence, or any invitation to connect, we are turning to the answer, capital A answer, and we are coming up against our blocks to that answer. There's nothing more scary to the ego than let's open our minds to spirit and observe what's going on. The ego gets terrified, so there'll be all kinds of machinations in the mind to try and distract. And the metaphysics and the forgiveness, I have heard, which of course is only in my mind, many people say, oh, don't get hung up on the metaphysics. That's too intellectual. Let's practice the principles. And that's a great stepping stone, I would say. Practice the principles. Hooray, hallelujah, go to it. However, we can only practice what we have been open to and what we're allowing to come through us. The metaphysics is supreme at showing a different understanding of everything. And that supports us when we're sitting with our family and it's all kicking off and all the past comes up and we don't know what to say, and this one's ill and that one's shouting, and whatever the chaos is in our lives that can come. Our appreciation of the Holy Spirit thought system, which we could call A Course in Miracles metaphysics, is the most powerful holder of us, so that we can turn in the mind to never upset for the reason I think. I'm only seeing the past. I can only be hurt by my own thoughts. We have easy access to the course teaching, and that supports us, motivates us to practice forgiveness in our classrooms, what we call our daily lives. And then we find relationships changing, then we find more peace, then we find all sorts of things happening. And then we can think, aha, that metaphysics was very useful. Let me go back to it some more. Forgiveness is easier. Oh, hallelujah. Let's just check in with that metaphysics again. This has certainly been my experience. It is what I hold out to everybody that I work with. It's always this virtuous circle in some form or other of looking at the Course teaching, opening our minds, looking at our own experience, and being inspired and encouraged to put that into practice in the challenges that will inevitably come. So I hope that says something to you about what you were asking.
Absolutely. I really like how you referred to as our everyday life as our classroom, which is so true. It is. Every day is a class, for us for something to learn. And you have so many beautiful teachings. I watched recently one of your videos where you discussed that some of our experiences that seem to be our biggest failures are actually our greatest successes, and vice versa. Some of what we consider our greatest successes were actually our greatest failures. I'd love to hear you talk more about this.
And the Course talks about this. So let's take my experience of lying down for 6 years. That looked like a catastrophic difficulty. This was not good news in my mid-40s to be down and out with a teenage son. From the worldly perspective, this was a real failure, and it looked like it was going nowhere, that nobody held out any hope at all that things would change. I was very, very poorly. And now, or even at the time, I knew that there was very powerful spiritual things going on. And once I started to get up, I could see, wow, that was sure some life-changing, mind-changing thing going on there. And now with the Course, I can see it was supreme healing. I was getting to see just how horrible the ego thought system is, and I was finding I was more than a body, or not a body, but I was finding I'm not just this body that's lying down, can't do anything. I'm much more than that, because I was experiencing myself differently from this body lying down, not being able to do anything. So it has been perfect training to do the work I do now. So that's an example.
Well, also, I did, I've seen a few of your stories and videos. So if I don't know if you want to talk about this, but that's 6 years of being down with this physical issue. Didn't that start with you were doing a particular session and Mother Miriam showed up and your light baby or light body was...
Yes, that was, oh my goodness, what was her name? Mother Mira.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. So I was turning to all kinds of spiritual teachers at that time. Still up and around, but obviously not quite right. And I went to a healer, and she did lie me down and did some healing. And Mother Mira appeared to me. It was exactly like she was, although my eyes were closed, it was just like she was sitting next to me. And she put a hand into my stomach and pulled something out. And I don't think I could see it at the time. And she said, "Now it's time to lift up your light, baby." And I don't think I've ever been more terrified. There was something in me that was rigid with horror and terror. I didn't want to be a light baby. Thank you very much. I wanted a body that worked. And after that, for about 3 weeks, this is just before I stopped being able to use my body in what we'd call a normal way. For about 3 weeks, I got zappings of energy coming through the body. I could kind of see light, and these ripples were coming through, and it would be a lot and any time of the day, and really like this, shaking. And then that subsided. And then shortly after that, boom, I could no longer stand up. So that looks like a bit of a disaster too. But of course,
Yeah.
that I'm presuming that spiritual experience was setting me up for what was coming.
Well, what brought you out of the 6-year physical malady? Was that part of your spiritual journey back?
Yes, I think I mentioned earlier that there was forgiveness of my father right at the end.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And that had been worked on throughout.
Mm.
My sense is that it needed 6 years, in my experience, to wade through all the buried ego stuff that was rising to the surface. I was flat out working in my mind for those 6 years. I had lots of past life experiences, not with dates and figures, but lots of horror, trauma, deaths, violence, loads of stuff coming up. And I just had to keep being centered. I would see again and again, like a black sea of energy rolling past me, and my job, it felt like, was to stay centered and not get swept along in that black sea. Yes, yeah, it was quite something. And now perhaps I can bring it more up to date. Those very difficult times of being in the mind and having all this stuff coming up. Of course, it was much easier when I started getting up and around and I could interact, and I found the course, and that was all very beautiful. I started teaching the course. I started working for the organisation that supports students in the UK, Course Miracle students. It was all very whizzy and happening and going and exciting, along with the deepening the connection. And then I would say in the last 9 months to a year, it's moving on now, what sometimes we call the ego backlash, when we're deeply going into it, opening, then the ego gets threatened and starts kicking back. All our mind, we're doing it to ourselves, but that's our experience. It has been so gale-forced, so stormy in the mind, really, really stormy. Thoughts of just kill yourself, be much better. You'll be much more comfortable if you kill yourself. I've not been suicidal at all in the normal sense, but this very soft, caring voice, just kill yourself, be much better. No, that's ego. But the pull of it, that's the attraction to death. I could experience it, feel it. So attractive. If you think of yourself, not like that, but just about to fall to sleep, and you just want to fall to sleep. That pull, it was like that. Just kill yourself. So I saw all that. And then there was, just stop teaching A Course in Miracles. It's far too hard, far too hard. You're not doing a good job. No one's benefiting. Just don't do it. So I've had a lot of that to work through, and that's now passed off. And also dark, vicious, black, chaotic energy in the mind. Really, really horrendous stuff. So I'm not saying this, and I really don't want anybody to be daunted by what I'm saying or frightened by what I'm saying. I hope it is supportive, because if we go on a deep journey, we will meet this in some form or other. Chaos, utter chaos, because this world is chaos and we dress it up with meaning, but it has no meaning. And we have to find a way to keep hanging on to our spiritual connection, whatever the form that is for us. So when I was getting Stop A Course in Miracles, I said in my mind, okay, Jesus is non-negotiable. The mind, the presence that I know as Jesus, that's non-negotiable. If the form changes, then it's no longer A Course in Miracles, so be it. You know, it's a correction. Course in Miracles is also an illusion. But this connection, I am not moving from. So I stayed. And then it's moved on. And of course, it is still A Course in Miracles, because that is the way that this mind is healing.
I love that. I'm just going to latch onto that. Jesus is non-negotiable. I like that. I love it. Well, that, it's interesting too, what you're saying. As we know, the ego can be very devious. Most of the times it's loud and angry and shouting, but sometimes it can whisper, just kill yourself. Just kill. Yeah. It's very devious. And that's where our strength comes from the love and the oneness and the truth of that we're learning in A Course in Miracles. Now, I have another question. I'm like super curious about everything, especially this one. The term holy instant that the Course talks about. I mean, can you explain exactly what the holy instant is and how can people practically implement it into their own life?
Okay. Fantastic question. I actually have the quiet answer. If anybody's got the book, you might like to look at in the Blue Book, chapter 27, section 4. It's called The Quiet Answer, and it's one of the most beautiful depictions of the holy instant. The teaching is that at any moment, as we seem to be on the timeline, trundling through our lives, at any moment, we can open our minds beyond time and space. We seem to be here, it's 5:45 UK time, it'll be 5 hours before that with you, I think, and tomorrow I'll do this, next week you'll do that, trundle, trundle, trundle. We go along our lives and we remember 5 minutes ago, remember 5 years ago, remember 15 years ago, time. We are embedded in a sense of going along a timeline. And the Course says, at any stage, at any instant in this seeming experience, we can open our minds and have a very different experience. We can open to the Holy Spirit, which is our memory of God, and have a glimpse of eternity. We can turn our minds to the memory of an experience which knew no time whatsoever. Time is a fiction. We have made it up. It does not exist, but not denying how real it is in our experience. A Course in Miracles is helping us who live in the holy instant. This is its aim. This could be stated as an aim. That more and more, and we do practice rather than perfection straight away for most of us, we can practice quietly at home or walking down the street, at work. Right now, we can practice the holy instant. We can simply take our awareness and say, open. Have a desire, open to spirit. And that in the desire is the accomplishment. The Course very encouragingly, reassuringly says, if we desire to open that door in our mind to something beyond this world, it will happen. And in the holy instant, if we keep practicing, at first it might be a real glimpse and not much going on, we may think, but if we keep practicing, then we will only feel the attraction of God, for God, the Course says. We can get to that stage seemingly while still in a body. We will only be aware of, we will only desire our true identity as the extension of God's being. The memory of God will dawn on our minds, and bodies will cease to be in our experience at that time. It doesn't mean this body will somehow go off. When we come out of the holy instant, we will still think we're in a body until we don't, until we really decide to transcend this experience. But when we're practicing, don't fear that your body will suddenly disappear and not come back. But in our minds, our state of mind will no longer acknowledge that we are bodies and that the body is real, and we can lose all awareness of it temporarily. And this is practicing to be able to go through our lives, and this is very much my cutting edge, if you like to put it like that. This is very much where I am working, and if there's time, I'd love to tell you about my miracle this week about living in the holy instant. We can have this as our life, our truth and our reality, while lucid dreaming, watching the body go shopping, walking down the street, going to work, talking to the loved ones, doing whatever. But our life is not that. Our life is this connection. And in this is all safety, all peace, all strength, all power. Everything we'd ever really want, that we can never have as a person. We can only have as a mind. So, happy to be able to say my experience this week. I am training to be a ski instructor. Oh. I don't know whether you picked this up in your wanderings, but I'm halfway through a year-long course training to be a ski instructor on an artificial slope. I don't think you have them in the States, but we do over here. So this is amazing, having been quite weak, quite frail for quite some time, but now I'm a ski instructor, or training to be a ski instructor. So the stamina's growing, the strength is growing. But when I started the course in April, I felt the spirit guidance was, you will not be able to do this training with the state of mind you have now. You are going to have to open up more to allow spirit to flow through for you to find the physical strength and stamina needed for this course. So I signed up. I said, yep, okay. So this week, I taught my first set of beginner's lessons with a supervisor, but it was me doing the teaching. And it was Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday mornings for 2 hours. And this is a very active activity, teaching skiers on a nursery slope, up and down, up and down, up and down. And on Tuesday, yesterday, after the morning session, I looked after my grandson in the afternoon. I came back to the ski slope in the evening and did an hour and a half shadowing of a qualified instructor doing her lesson. That's standing up, watching. And then 2 hours of training, my own personal training as part of this course. And throughout this, I came again and again to being in the holy instant and asking to be really secure that this is where the energy was coming from. Not my body. This is where the energy is coming from. And the image is a body that can do these things. There's no past, there's no future. I came again and again. My support session on Monday, I brought this in. Let's practice the holy instant. No past, no future. Whatever you're experiencing is the mind's choice right now. So if my body feels tired, it is not because I've just done all this skiing. It's because my mind is choosing to have an experience of fatigue. And the false excuse is doing the skiing. So this has been mighty, mighty, mighty powerful healing miraculous healing in my mind. Because here I am on Thursday and just fine, and I got through it all. I went to the advanced class, skiing class last night after all of that, and went through that. I was glad to get to bed last night, but this practice, I feel I have taken a huge leap in living in the holy instant, no past, no future. What's happening in my experience is my choice now. And I can keep letting the dream fade and allow the power of spirit to be my power and my truth.
You know, I'm going to endorse exactly what you just said, because I've been a marathon runner for the last 4+ decades. And so I've had that exact same experience. I've done 78 marathons. And so if I'm at many times mile 23, and it's exactly that. You are in the holy instant. There's nothing else. And even if you're not spiritually oriented, Spirit is empowering you through and giving you the strength to do it. And that's how I've gotten to every finish line. And I endorse exactly what you said. I'm so glad that you got to experience that too with what you're doing.
Thank you, Carl. It's so beautiful to hear, because a marathon is a marathon, isn't it? I mean, it's a big physical undertaking.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I want to say is the holy instant. I think many people in the world, if they've never heard of any of this stuff, they can relate through probably the closest thing is Eckhart Tolle with the power of now. Millions and millions of people. And he is one person that perhaps one of the first ever to come back. There's only now. There is now, and millions upon millions of people have read that book, so they can grasp onto the concept of the holy instant that way.
Yes. It's fabulous teaching, and that mind that that is showing up as Eckhart Tolle is doing such powerful work. I would like to put in no reference to Eckhart at all. I would like to put in my understanding of a worldly now and a holy instant and the difference. All good. We need stepping stones from wherever we think we are to coming back to truth. So one type of now is right now I'm talking to Carl. But that now is a worldly now. So that can be wonderful improvement on seeming to be talking to Carl, but thinking about my dinner in a minute and worrying about my grandson tomorrow. And no, I'm really here with Carl. Being mindful, being present in the worldly now. That's tremendous, and I would absolutely encourage it. However, the course is going further than that. It's saying we can open our minds to beyond the timeline, the past, the worldly now, and the future. Because the holy instant is not, I'm kironJ talking to Carl. It is opening to the mind that is beyond time and space, joining with the mind that is seeming to be Carl, also beyond time and space. So if people are listening and thinking, whoa, I would say start in a very simple way. If your mind tends to be scattered and you're always thinking about the past or worrying about the future, just try being where you seem to be. Be in the room where you are. Focus on what you're doing. If you're cooking, cook. If you're shopping, shop. Do that. It's incredibly powerful healing to start coming away from the massive ego distractions and pointers in the past, in the future. And then when we can be more settled in, here I am doing what I'm doing, if we want to, we can choose to go further, even if we don't know what that looks like. Can we do it? Don't know. I frequently say to people, just take 5 minutes and sit down quietly, and choose to open your mind to Spirit, Holy Spirit, Jesus, Buddha, whoever you like. Light doesn't have to be a person, whatever might help to think beyond this physical experience, and just choose to open, and don't judge the experience. Don't think I'm doing well, I'm not doing well, I can't do this, this is boring, it's a waste of time. Watch all that, but don't be invested in it, don't believe it. Keep with the intention of, I really want to open to beyond what seems to be my experience. Try that for a week and see what happens.
Wow. Well, folks, we've been speaking to kironJ Gardner, one of the most wonderful teachers of non-dualistic spirituality in the world, as taught in A Course in Miracles. And Kiron, this has just been wonderful. And I'm going to wind up here in a little bit. I have seen that you do lead a regular meditation group, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I was wondering if you might be willing to do maybe a short little meditation for us. Is that something? I don't mean to shift gears so much here, but
yeah, always. So give me a time. How long would you like this to be for?
1 or 2 minutes. So
okay. So shall we close our eyes and open our minds? Be aware of the space all around us. Feel it, sense it. Be aware of the stillness of space. The silence of space. The peace of space. Our true minds, our true nature is like this space, still, silent, peaceful. And we can ask now, in this practicing of the holy instant, to become more and more familiar with our natural stillness and silence and peace.
thank you, kironJ. That was awesome.
You're very welcome.
Personally, I didn't realize it, but boy, I really needed that. Thank you. And I already went for my run this morning. So
Yeah.
Well, again, we've been speaking to kironJ Gardner, amazing teacher of A Course in Miracles. kironJ, thank you. I'm truly, again, honored to have you on the show. How can people connect with you?
Thank you for asking. My website is kironj.com. That's the easiest way. All my events are there. There's a contact form. Please do get in touch if you feel at all drawn to this way of seeing the course, understanding the course, practicing the course. Love to have you along for some of the events. Very happy to do one-to-one work. I offer silent joining sessions, as well as the receiving from silence workshops, if you'd like to experience that. Really lovely. I love it. I love it all. So please do get in touch. And I've got a Facebook page as well. My Facebook page is dedicated to the course, kironJ.com, Facebook/kironJ Gardner. And every day I post a quote from the course. I've gone through the whole book. This is the second year. I've gone through one section each day and posted a quote. And I try and follow spirit direction with that. And there can be some powerful teaching coming through those Facebook quotes. So check that out as well if you'd like to.
All right. So thank you again, kironJ Gardner, for being on World Awakenings. Namaste.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you very much for inviting me.
This has been another episode of World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with host Carl Gruber, a certified law of attraction life coach. We welcome you to tune in to each and every episode of World Awakenings as we open your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to the truth of all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how much they play an all-important role in our moment-to-moment daily life. Much love and light to you, my friend, and thank you for tuning into World Awakenings.